What's up, my dudes? Welcome. Welcome to the part 2 of my extreme stalling. As you can see, there is 1 day, 1 hour, and 46 minutes until launch of 0.5, Return of the Ancients, and the Runes of Alder League. I'm super excited. Are you not burnt out, you might say? The answer is no. The answer is no. Because the update we are getting in 1 day and 2 hours is going to be the biggest update to Path of Exile ever. Just Path of Exile in general. I'm super excited. We have tons of stuff. I've covered most of the things to the best of my abilities. I've covered basically every teaser. I've covered the reveal. I've covered the patch notes. We've covered these little drops that we have been getting the last couple of days. So it is kind of nice to say that this is going to be the last of my stalling and waiting for patch 0.5 in Path of Exile 2. A game that is still in early access. Let me remind you, even though some people don't necessarily look at this as like a game that is actually in early access, it is. And we are getting the 0.5, and I'm excited for it. I hope you are too. I have some stuff lined up for us this session right here. I hope you're gonna enjoy it. Also, as I've been mentioning in the last session, I wanted to make a couple of videos out of the earlier session where I covered the additions and the changes to the passive tree that we are getting in 0.5. So that is uploading as we speak. I will get it to you as soon as possible. I hope that you enjoy that type of content as well. I really enjoy doing these like longer sessions, either where I'm kind of covering things about Path of Exile 2 or I'm playing the game, having fun. I like doing those longer sessions, but I also like to kind of create these videos, basically. That's basically part of the longer sessions, but they are also cut down into a little bit smaller parts if you don't want to watch the entire stream or this entire like long form content. I'm trying to chop it down a little bit for you guys. So I hope you enjoy that. And as I said, yeah, that's going to be available ASAP. I just hit the upload to YouTube on 2 different videos, the additions and also the changes to the passive tree in 0.5. Hope you're going to enjoy that. Hope that's going to be something for you to enjoy. Alongside this longer formed content that I'm creating right now while I'm streaming. So, like I said, I have a couple of things lined up for us. There is a couple of things in my playlist queue here that I want us to check out. So first of all, we have 2 of these like 2 to 3 minute short new videos from GGG themselves. The experience improvements in Return of the Ancient, the user experience improvements to the new league, and also we are gonna be exploring some new Kalguran skills. I want to check out a new Gassy video with some like late minute minion buffs. I also want to check out a couple of Kriparian's videos. Like, Kriparian is a creator that I've been watching a lot since I started playing PoE2. This is a cool guy. He's been, amongst other things, like, he actually was like the host, or like the presenter, almost, or like the main host of ExileCon, last ExileCon. I mean, which is really cool. And also, like, he has done a bunch of like PoE content. He is an SSF player, and if you watched my session yesterday, I did answer a question from one of our channel's good friends, Mr. Alex. I answered a question if I was gonna go SSF this league or not. So my answer is like 100% I am gonna go SSF at some point. Like, I'm 100% sure I'm gonna be doing that. Usually what I do every league is that I kind of like start off playing trade, then I kind of pivot over to SSF, then I kind of like get in this mood for some like hardcore SSF. So probably during this league I'm gonna play like all of them, but the question is like, what am I gonna be starting? That's like the main question. I am leaning towards the SSF starter. Even though I'm not 100% sure, I'm leaning towards it, so that's why I wanted us today to check out Kriparian's video from a couple of days ago, where he's asking the question, should you play SSF in PoE2? So that's going to be cool. Also, Kriparian has actually released a video with 3 different Spirit Walker builds. I guess it's like more of like build ideas, because at this point, like, no one actually knows if their ideas are gonna like really work in this patch. And that's basically what I have planned. I had a long session outside the Mounts and Fairy Tale Cave today, out doing some business. So I don't want to promise anything for this session. Like, I don't want to promise that I'm going to be able to like cover everything. I'm absolutely going to be covering like the new teasers from GGG concerning the 0.5, and also I really want to check out. Excuse me. I am going to check out the hugely buffed minions one day before launch video from Gassy. And yeah, I'm probably gonna do the should you play SSF in PoE2 as well. So at least I'm gonna cover like 4 different videos, 4 different topics here today. I'm not 100% sure if I'm gonna be able to also do the Crip's Guide to Spirit Walker, the 3 builds video. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have the time or basically like the energy to do it, since I'm kind of starting stream pretty late today. But and I also want to like keep an eye on the video uploads that I have coming of the additions and the changes to the passive tree in 0.5. But I think, my dudes, without further ado, after this little introduction, let's jump straight into some new user experience improvements in Return of the Ancients. Let's go, my dudes.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers, Game Director on Path of Exile 2. We've added a ton of new quality of life features in Return of the Ancients. Here's a couple you'll find useful in the endgame. The Atlas now has a search box that updates live as you type. If you have a specific map you'd like to run, just key in the name of it and you'll be able to locate it instantly.
Okay, so this is pretty cool. But like, my initial thoughts regarding this is like, I think it's a really cool like quality of life feature here. I think it's really cool that we are able to search for like specific nodes on the atlas, specific map types. I also assume that we are going to be able to, or I really hope that we are going to be able to also like search for like citadels. Like if we have been spending some time just like pathing out in different directions on the atlas, and we found like one citadel over here, like another citadel over here, like I really hope that we are going to be able to see them as well, clearly marked on the map. And also like these unique maps, because there are a bunch of these like unique maps also. And also, like, are we going to be able to actually search for specific areas? Really interesting. I don't know if there are going to be like stuff added into the game that's going to make us like very specifically want to go for certain map types. Like for example, here he's saying like Spiderwoods. I don't know if in this patch there is like, I don't know if there's going to be like a reason for us for wanting to like really seek out just like you know, like a normal map like this, like a Spiderwood map. I don't know if like there is something that's going to make us feel like there is something that's going to be able, that we're going to be able to target farm on like specific maps. Like, I don't know. But what this for sure tells us, even though it's not coming in 0.5, what it for sure tells us is that this is going to be the case at some point. At some point, we are going to be in a situation where we actually really want to hunt down like these very specific maps for the reasons that we are going to have to do this. Let's keep watching.
Hitting enter will move you from map to map, allowing you to easily move between them. This works on more than just map names. You can find biomes,
Yep.
powerful bosses, or even specific mods.
Yep.
Really anything about a map you can think of. And this can come in handy if you get specific tablets that you want to use with specific mechanics. So for example, if you get a tablet that adds extra essence encounters, you might want to run it with a map that boosts essences. By typing essence in the search box, you can find maps that will affect them. Like this one.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so they are kind of like, I guess they are kind of like returning to how the Atlas used to work, where you could actually see like all the specific you know, like random like modifiers on them,
which causes essence packs to have 2 rares in them. Now that we have trade market search built into the game client, we've also added the ability to price check items you find more easily.
Yes, bro. Getting this in game, not having to use like a third party thing, huge.
Shift Alt clicking an item will now instantly search for it on the trade market, showing you the current prices. For rare items, it's handy to exclude some mods, so we've added the ability to enable and disable each modifier individually, letting you see exactly how each one affects the item's price.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So mainly like the reason for, you know, for this being okay, so this is pretty cool. So I wouldn't call it like a hidden feature about this, but like just hearing the words from Jonathan's mouth, it really makes me think like how genius it actually is to kind of be able to remove certain modifiers. So if you have like let's say you have like a specific item in your inventory that you want to price check, but you don't necessarily want to price check it for those specific mods, you could basically like remove a bunch of them and also kind of see what the different mods are actually doing with the price. So that's also gonna hopefully like teach us to, you know, kind of predict even more like how much an item is probably gonna be worth because it has like this type of modifier on it, and we're gonna be learning that certain modifiers are gonna bump up the price.
And that's not all. The Fragment Stash tab is finally coming to Path of Exile 2, and with it comes some serious tabception. This tab is a dedicated storage for various boss fragments. There's also a tab for all your precursor tablets, with each tablet type receiving 6 tabs of storage.
Yeah, that's cool.
Finally, there's storage for your
Bro, that's a lot. That's a lot. Like, if you think about it, that's a lot.
Jin barriers and inscribed ultimate.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, yeah. So this is huge. So actually getting a fragment tab that has the boss fragments that you need for the certain bosses separated from the tablets, and also having the the trials actually separated from the tablets and the fragments, bro, that's huge. It is kind of a little bit weird, I think, that like they couldn't just add the tablet tab to the Waystone stash tab. Like, that is to me like a little bit weird why they wouldn't do that. But I mean, it's like, it doesn't kind of, it's like, what's important now is that they are actually adding the fragments and the trials, like, for those to have its own tab. That's a big thumbs up for me.
items, both of which also get 6 tabs each. Speaking of changes to stash tabs, with the Runes of Alder League, there's a ton more runes that have been added to the game. In order to fit them, we've modified the Socketables stash tab.
Yeah, so we kind of saw this in yesterday's session, like going over more of the like rune forging and rune crafting aspects of the new changes. We kind of saw this already with like the 5 different tabs for the augments. Really nice.
There are now 5 substashes for runes, Kalguran runes,
Yep.
soul cores,
Okay, now they're actually showing it.
idols, and ancient augments.
Ancient augments, my dudes. Yeah, so this was the one that I was so like I wasn't sure about like the I wasn't sure about this second one, but I was pretty sure that like this first one, I mean, obviously we can see that it's like it's basically just kind of like the already existing runes. I mean, it seems like there is some other runes here as well, like some like remnant stuff, it almost seems like. But like getting the Kalguran rune on the second one here, I was a little bit unsure about this, but now we know what this is. And I was pretty sure that this was going to be like soul cores, this was going to be idols, but the last one, my dudes?
Modified the Socketables stash tab.
The last one?
There are now 5 substashes for runes, Kalguran runes, soul cores, idols, and ancient augments.
Ancient augments, my dudes. This is interesting. What are these? What are these?
Giving you much more space for all those runes.
And it's not like having the extra space for them, as much as it's like just having them organized and separated. So if you are looking for some, so like if you're looking for runes, you go to the rune tab. If you're looking for the Kalguran runes, you go to the Kalguran rune tabs. Soul cores, you do soul cores. Idols, you do idols. But this, the ancient, what was it called again?
Idols and ancient augments.
Ancient augments, my dudes. What are those?
Giving you much more space for all those runes. All these features and much more are available in Return of the Ancients, launching May 29th.
Yep.
Thanks for watching, and see you at launch.
See you at launch, bro, in one freaking day. Yeah, okay, so that's the user experience improvements in Return of the Ancients. Really nice. Yeah, we're gonna hit them up with a like for this one. Like, I really want to. I think it's important for us, my dudes, to actually show them that this is something that we really appreciate, that we want them to make more of. So the same as I usually say to you guys watching this, like, if you like what you see, hit me up with a like. If you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing. And I'm just going to remind you once again that this is important, because it's telling the creators of this content that like this is something that you enjoy, and hitting that sub also really tells them that this is something you want to see more of. Okay, so that's important. Let's move on to the second one of the new videos here. So this is explore new Kalguran skills. without further ado, my dudes, let's jump straight into it.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers, Game Director on Path of Exile 2. The Ruins of Aldo League contains remnant encounters that can grant you a huge variety of rewards.
Yeah, so there was some questions about this yesterday also. So maybe we will get even more of like more information about these new very league specific encounters.
Among these are Kalguran.
Yeah, so this one, bro. Okay, so these are the remnants right here. It looks like almost like a floating type of rock or something. So what I thought in yesterday's session is that like we are only gonna find these like in connection with the expedition mechanic in maps, you know, where you kind of like place the different explosives and you unearth the runic monsters and stuff. The remnants, it seems like you're gonna be able to encounter them just like as the remnant. As the stone, basically.
Encounters that can grant you a huge variety of rewards. Among these are Kalguran skills, fusions of Kalguran rune shapes and Ray-classed magic that are powered by your runic ward.
Skyfall? Okay, so yeah, so these are the new, some of the new runic skills here. So we have the, on the left here, we have the repulsion. Spell attack AoE trigger physical duration repeatable. Target an area and curse enemies with a Verisium rune, inflicting them with fragility. Hitting these enemies causes the curse to trigger an explosion to deal damage in an area and apply significant knockback to other enemies near the cursed target, with more stun build-up based on their fragility on the target hit. Okay, interesting. So repulsion is the curse itself, but it's also a wave. I'm guessing that's like the knockback aspect here, like the repulsion wave. That's the yeah. There's going to be some pulsing going on, my dudes.
Instead of mana. They also don't have attribute requirements, meaning they can be
They don't have attribute requirements.
used with any class.
So that's really cool. Yeah, I'm not gonna move too quickly here. So that's really cool about the new Kalguran skills. They're not gonna have any attribute requirements. So that means like the cost of them is gonna be ward. It's not gonna be like typical mana or life in some cases. But it's gonna spend ward. So ward is something that you're gonna be able to like build on your gear with rune forging, and you're gonna use that ward, or yeah, like the cost is gonna be like the amount of ward that you actually have crafted basically on your gear, which is really interesting. We have this other spell on the right here. It's called the Bitter Dead. It's an AoE cold repeatable. Spend ward and target an area, transforming corpses into bitter cores that seeks out enemies and chills enemies around them. The cores explode at the end of their duration, creating runes which deals additional cold damage over time. Oh my god, this sounds cool. This sounds really cool. Okay.
Also don't have attribute requirements, meaning they can be used with any class. You'll need to plan your ward costs around them, but with the right armor, and maybe a rune or two, you can augment your...
Okay, yeah, so this is interesting. Okay, so here's our kind of like first look at like what a rune forged normal item is gonna look like. So basically this armor base here, the Chieftain Cuirass, it comes with 331 armor and 120 runic ward. But there is also runes that we can equip in the item that's gonna give us 16% increased runic ward regeneration rate, which means that it's like the runic ward is kind of like gonna be like regenerating in the same way as our life, mana, or energy shield, which is really, really interesting actually. Second one here is the warding rune the warding rune of obsession. If you equip this in your wand, all damage taken bypasses runic ward, but the runic ward regeneration rate is doubled. Interesting. So this is my first look at least. I don't know if it's your first look, but this is my first look at like what a Runeforged base item is gonna look like. And also some of the runes that we're gonna be able to equip in our item to increase or boost the ward even further. Very interesting.
Character with runic might, or even make builds dedicated to these.
Bro, the heck kind of skill was that? One more time.
Or two, you can augment your character with runic might, or even make a build dedicated to these.
My god, that was like 10 freaking runic comments raining down on the enemies right there, bro.
Raise chilling volatile orbs with bitter dead.
Yeah, okay, so he's actually going through bitter dead as well. Okay, nice.
Which spends ward to create chilling cores to seek out your enemies and explode them.
That looks
also
cool.
Dealing damage and leaving behind a rune that deals cold damage over time. Exploding the corpses of enemies after they're dead might feel a little ancient. Instead, detonate your foes while they're still alive, causing enemies hit with detonate living that are...
Bro, we're getting a look at detonate living as well. Are you kidding me? Yeah, so so we have this skill that's called like detonate dead in PoE 1, and it's really cool. Like you are detonating corpses basically, but here you're actually detonating the living. So hitting an enemy under the cold threshold causes them to violently explode, damaging surrounding enemies, highlights enemies under the cold thresholds. Yeah, that's really cool. But so apart from like making this explosion on an enemy that's ready for culling, what else is it doing?
Instead, detonate your foes while they're still alive, causing enemies hit with detonate living that are under the cull threshold to immediately explode.
Bro, it's so cool that they are actually exploding and like damaging a bunch of like the surrounding enemies. That's really cool.
Conductive runes spends ward to create a number of runes in front of you.
Okay.
After arming, these hazardous runes will explode when stepped on by an enemy.
Oh, bro, they are kind of working almost like mines, bro.
After arming, these hazardous runes will explode when stepped on by an enemy.
What?
Lightning attack damage and causing electrocution buildup.
Bro, dealing lightning attack damage and causing electrocution buildup? Oh my god. Spend runic ward to create a number of hazardous runes in a cone in front of you, which arm after a time. After arming, these runes will activate when enemies step on them, exploding to deal attack damage and apply electrocution buildup. Bro, this is so cool. Like these new Kalguran skills, I'm not gonna lie, like this is one of the things that I'm like most excited for this league.
This skill excels in getting you out of your current predicament, incapacitating pursuers,
oh my god,
getting you out of a tight corner.
Like this, like playing this with on like a lightning focus build, bro, that's probably gonna be crazy, right?
Runeforged Blade spends ward to make supported skills fire projectiles after fully armor breaking an enemy.
What?
Investing into projectile modifiers like Pierce or Chain will boost it even further.
What?
Eternal March tap.
Bro, hold on. Bro, he's just burning through these different skills like it's nothing, bro. Chill. freaking chill. We need to have a closer look at each one of them. Rune-forged blades. Okay, so that's a support. So this is actually a support skill. Supports attacks you use yourself, causing them to consume fully broken armor on enemies to fire a nova of runic projectiles at the cost of runic ward. The projectiles cannot hit the enemy from which they originated, okay? And it can also not support skills that consume broken armor. Okay, I see. So, kind of like what we have to think about here is that the cost of these skills and supports is going to be ward. So it's not going to be like mana or life. It's going to be ward. So you're really going to want to build ward, I think, on a lot of your equipment.
Fire projectiles after fully armor breaking an enemy.
Like Nova is one of my favorite supports.
Investing into projectile modifiers like Pierce or Chain will boost it even further.
So getting this and like Pierce and Chain is gonna make it even crazier. The combination of Rune-forged, what was it called?
Ward.
Rune-forged blades and Chain and
Make supported skills fire projectiles.
Fork,
after
right?
fully armor breaking an enemy.
Pierce, sorry.
Investing into projectile modifiers like Pierce or Chain will boost it even further.
Oh my god.
Eternal March taps into your reserves of runic ward to instantly restore your dead minions.
What? Eternal March? Spend runic ward to instantly revive your minions. Prioritizes the most powerful minions first. Oh my god.
To life. Use it as a panic button when a boss crushes your army into dust, or even provide more fuel for minion explosions.
Yeah.
Just be careful, as spending this much ward will leave you vulnerable.
Okay, so spending this much ward will leave us vulnerable.
If you want to cosplay a turtle without holding a pesky shield, Runic Reprieve has you covered, literally. This channeled spell behaves quite similarly to raising your shield, blocking all hits you take.
Oh my god. Bro, it's like a shield? Bro, it's like a shield. It works like almost a similar way to like raise shield without you having to have a shield equipped. So, channel to create a protective bubble all around you, blocking hits against you. While channeling this skill, damage you take from hits is also removed from Runic Ward, and you cannot be light stunned by hits you block. But blocking too much damage may heavy stun you. You cannot recover Runic Ward while this skill is active. Okay.
Cosplay a turtle without holding a pesky shield, Runic Reprieve has you covered, literally.
Wow.
This channeled spell behaves quite similarly to raising your shield, blocking all hits you take. It even protects your back. However, every time you're hit, your ward depletes, and you can't recover it while channeling.
Yeah.
Additionally, every hit causes heavy stun buildup on you, just like raising your shield. Sometimes what's buried in the past can still hurt you. Fragments of the Past creates a Verisium volcano, which spews ice fragments around you for a duration. This is an excellent way to augment your ice fragment builds, implementing your Wolf's Cross Slash or a Freezing Salvo ice build, as well as others.
What? Bro, pause. Hold on. Fragments of the Past, okay. AoE projectile triggers sustained cold duration. Spend Runic Ward to create a Verisium volcano that deals damage on initial eruption and triggers ice fragments. Bro, this is really cool. It's like an... almost like a cold volcano, in a way?
Or a Freezing Salvo ice build, as well as others.
Bro.
Try out these Kalgurin gems and more on May 29th.
Wow.
Return of the Ancients launch. Thanks for watching, and see you then.
Bro, that's so cool. Like, I really hope that, like, they didn't, like, take the best ones. Like, the 100%, like, definitive, like, best ones. To showcase. I hope, like, the ones they didn't show are, like, even crazier. To be honest. Oh my god. Yeah, bro, this is a really good one. So sad that it's only like 2.5 minutes long. But at the same time, it makes us like able to kind of keep the excitement of the things that we don't already know. But really, really cool. I mean, really, really cool, these new Kalguran skills. One of the things that I'm like definitely like most excited for experiencing in the new league. So let's move on to this new Gassy video right here. Gassy is saying, or Gassy is actually pointing out here that they just hugely buffed minions one day before launch. LOL. So what it seems like is that they've actually they've actually just like fixed the bug here. So fix the bug that caused the minion damage bonus against non-unique enemies introduced in version 0.3 to function incorrectly. Depending on specific circumstances, this will result in a very little change to early minion damage. Approximately 25 to 35% more late-game minion damage against non-unique enemies, and approximately 20 to 25% more late-game minion damage against unique enemies. This bonus is no longer factored into the damage numbers displayed for skills of your minions. What? Bro, that's actually crazy if that's been the case. Like, if the minions, just like in general, have been bugged since 0.3 for 2 patches, bro? Let's hear what Gassy has to say about this.
My fiance drove my daughter to kindergarten. I was like, okay, let's pick up the phone. And it's just spam, dude. So spammed with this. And it says, fixed a bug that caused a minion damage bonus against non-unique enemies introduced in the version 0.3 to function incorrectly. Depending on specific circumstances, this will
Bro, this is crazy.
result in a very little
Like, I can imagine that Gassy is gonna be like pumped about this.
change to early minion damage. Approximately 25 to 35% more late game minion damage against non.
So if you don't know, like, Gassy is like the minion guy. He's even been referred to by one of like the founders of Path of Exile. He's been referred to as like one of the world's greatest resources when it comes to minion specific content in PoE.
Unique enemies, and approximately 20 to 25% more late game minion damage against unique enemies. This bonus is also no longer factored into the damage numbers displayed for skills of your minions. So there's that. Anyways,
Bro, what? Gassy? Are you not gonna be like, are you okay? So is his feelings about this bug like being such a huge bad thing that this bug has actually been active for 2 patches? Is he gonna be like, is he gonna be more mad about that than that this is actually changing?
so that's a thing. So I tried to get some verification on what the hell this means. So I poked some people, and I'm going to show you this. The minions, this is from the 0.3 patch notes. Minions now deal 3% more damage with hits and ailments against non-unique monsters at skill level 3, scaling up to 50% more damage with hits and ailments against non-unique monsters by skill level 8. Apparently, this was working very, very, very wrong. So after talking to one of the devs, basically it just worked wrong. It ended up being a damage nerf against bosses. And then they said that they now instead balanced around this not working properly. So they found a bug, and now they balanced around it, which is kind of funny. I thought they were going to fix the bug, but instead what they did is they balanced around it, which is very typical minion stuff, challenges, well, changes. Anyways, what does this mean for the minion gameplay in PoE 2? And I'm going to try to explain this the best way possible. The TLDR is enjoy your quote-unquote about 25% more damage.
There you have it. From the Minion Master himself. Enjoy your quote-unquote 25% increased damage for your minions.
35% more damage against non-uniques. Have fun. Enjoy. That's basically the TLDR. Which is a humongous win.
Yep.
It's just,
Yep.
you just said, hey, you're welcome. Get more damage. So I'm like, okay, so that's the thing. Anyways, here's the really, really interesting part about this. Now, this is great news, obviously. PUB has been essentially displaying an incorrect damage numbers, mostly or specifically to not skeletons, but companions and specters. Now, local identity and the voiceover working with.
Bro, is a companion considered a minion? So has this been affecting companions as well?
PUB are working on this to get this displayed. I'm not going to go through the equation and the mathematics behind it because they're also talking to the PUEDB, which has the information incorrectly displayed as well, because apparently there's the hidden damage modifiers. But what is very interesting with that, instead of going in and talking about, you know, all the super in-depth mathematics, the result is this. The flat added damage modifiers from a rare scepter, for example, have been greatly undervalued, specifically to builds or minions such as companions and specters. As a result of,
bro, so basically what it's saying is that companions are also considered minions. So this is also going to be affecting your companions.
This, we have kind of looked into builds from a wrong kind of perspective when it comes to those. Now, theoretically, looking at builds that everyone has been doing, the results have been kind of on the point where everyone has been doing the correct thing mathematically. But what it does mean leading into PoE 2.0.5 that's launching tomorrow is actually this. The value of a rare scepter, since we have undervalued the strength of it in more cases than not, means that when it comes to the companion build for the Spirit Walker, the value difference between Sylvan's Effigy and a rare scepter is quite drastic.
So this was what I was thinking. Like, if this really has been affected, like, companions as well, because I mean, like, I did play some companion stuff in 0.3 with the druid. Sorry, with the not the druid. I'm sorry, with the huntress. And I really kind of felt like the companion aspect of it. So like I really wanted to go for like the tame beast approach and just try a bunch of stuff with that. And I really felt like it was kind of underwhelming to be honest. So it seems like that aspect, like the companion aspect, hasn't been working properly either. So let's hear what he has to say about this scepter.
At this point, this means that our original plan for the Spirit Walker to go Sylvan's Effigy might be very good, but it also means that it is currently, from a theoretical perspective, going to be something we might want to do for the sake of running a rare scepter instead. And if we do that, we want to run a From Nothing jewel to get Lord of Wiles from nothing on Settled So to pick this up. Now, however, since we're going to have PUB updated, you know, after launch to go through all the numbers, Sylvan's Effigy still has the other perk, and that is the multiplicative damage scaling increase through Sylvan's Effigy, since it has been confirmed that multiple instances of Tamed Beast is in fact scaling different instances of muster scaling. For those of you who don't know what muster is, I'm going to show you that real quick. It looks like this. Muster gives you 7% more damage for each different type of reviving minion. If you have 50 million different specters, it only counts as one instance. However, it has been confirmed that if you have a bunch of different versions of Tamed Beast, they do count as different types of reviving minions, allowing you to scale muster. This is a multiplicative damage scaling modifier. So that's the benefit on top of the rare modifiers that these things will have. So essentially, I'm not saying that the Spirit Walker or Sylvan's Effigy approach is going to be bad, but it does give us a better mathematical viewpoint on the approach of the Huntress build when it comes to how we play that, because of the fact that flat data damage scaling is considerably stronger than what we originally thought it was going to be. Now, again, I still think Sylvan's Effigy will be a very, very good option. It might even be the better one. But flat damage has a higher value than we ever thought it would have. That is kind of like the TLDR situation on this. And like I said before, the TLDR on the patch notes changes is that we literally just got 25%, give or take, more damage against unique enemies and 35% clearing damage for non-unique enemies and rares, for example. Like that alone is a crazy amount of damage increase. But that's basically the TLDR. Obviously, we'll have to do some actual serious theory crafting and stuff to work out the final form of every build, and that'll be easier when PUB is updated, which we know that Local Identity and the boys behind PUB are working actively on. But I just wanted to give some lights on this, and this is specifically to companions and specters when it comes to the hit and damage modifiers with how it's been scaled. Basically, it's like we're talking about flat data damage modifiers being multiplied 4 times. Like that is how crazy this is. And this is exclusively a display issue where PUB has not been correctly showcasing this, which means that when we've done a lot of the minion builds since the launch of PUE2 Early Access, we have been verifying a lot based on in-game testing and stuff like that as well, on top of the PUB. But the numbers on PUB has never really been accurate for these things, which means that the damage is just going to be significantly higher than, in terms of display.
But that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. I mean, so I really think like playing minions and companions, specters, like that whole thing, like there needs to be something that feels really good about like going in that type of direction or like leaning into that type of path. There should be something that feels really nice, that actually like wants you to be excited to go try out some like new minion stuff or some new companion stuff, because that stuff is really gonna be like really good and feel great to play, right? So that's kind of like the situation we want, right? We don't want it to be like this underwhelming feeling, right? I want to be confused about what the heck to play. I want there to be so many good things in the game that I can't freaking decide what I want to do.
Done the right things. It's just that the PUBs is never giving us a proper fair display of damage output for people to compare with, which I think is a really good thing, because we're going to see a lot better, or rather more accurate numbers in PUB. I know I'm saying a lot of words for people that are new to the game and might not really understand what's happening. So like I said, for you guys, the TLDR is these 2 things. 1, enjoy your free damage. We just got a massive
free. So like, yeah. So like, it's not really like it's not like really free damage, right? It's more like it was supposed to be there all along, but some bug has freaking prevented it from working correctly.
Increase of damage output across the board for all minions. The second TLDR is that the calculations of companions as well as specters is going to be much closer to reality in terms of the theoretical displayed DPS in Path of Building when we are designing builds in PUB, so that we can now verify and compare that in a better way with other builds and other non-minion archetypes, for example. Those are the 2 TLDRs that's coming out of this. And that's about it. I don't really have anything else to add to it. I'm just waking up with a smile on my lips saying, hey, we're getting a shitload more damage.
Yeah, he loves this, bros. He loves this.
I'm starting Spirit Walker. Anyways, hit like, button, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then.
Yeah. He's starting Spirit Walker, bro. A bunch of people is gonna be starting Spirit Walker. Yeah. kind of want to do the same thing, but it's just like I don't want to do what all the other people are doing. But I mean, it's just so exciting. Like, it's always going to be like that. Like, the new things added, the new cool things added is just always going to be exciting. And you know, I'm the type of person that really wants to like see it for myself to kind of like have an opinion on it. So yeah, a bunch of people are pumped for the Spirit Walker. I mean, I'm pumped for the Spirit Walker as well. I'm just kind of like in the same situation as yesterday, my dudes. Like, I don't know what to start. So moving on from this spirit buff right here, my dudes, and moving into something totally different. Here we're gonna check out Kriparian pondering about the issue if you should actually play solo self-found in Path of Exile 2. Without further ado, let's
Hey guys, how's it going?
let's head over to Krip. Let's head over to Krip's world, see what he's up to.
Hey guys, how's it going? Kriparian here. Today, I have a promised video for you guys. We're going to talk about solo self-found. Why would you even bother playing it? And it's a pretty interesting topic. It is one that I think people will have their own personal view of, and I will give you guys my personal view of it. I think, you know, you play video games however you wish, however results in you having the most fun. I am not one to judge, but for me, the idea of solo self-found in action RPGs has really revolutionized my appeal, my love for this type of game, and I kind of want to preach about it in a way because I kind of went through that conversion, and I think a lot of people haven't yet because they haven't really understood the advantages.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So before he moves on right here, right, so I want to talk a little bit about what I think are the advantages of actually playing Solo Self-Found in Path of Exile 2. Like, I feel it's the perfect time to play Solo Self-Found in Path of Exile 2. It's going to be this league, right? Because there's going to be so many cool things added that's going to make it like easier for us, you know, to actually create the characters that we want without like having to freaking trade for everything. Like, that's point number one. And I also feel like the way that you can actually learn the game by playing solo self-found, like the learnings that you can do from playing solo self-found, I think is something that you really can apply to playing trade. Like, trade is always going to be like the main way that like most of people are going to be playing Path of Exile, right? Either it's 1 or 2. But the solo self-found aspect of it is actually the game mode, in my opinion, that's like really going to teach you most about the items, most about the crafting, because you basically have to do these crafts yourself. You basically have to craft everything yourself. You can't just go on trade and freaking buy every single currency and every single item that you actually need to do the crafts that you should do. You actually have to go get those currencies and get those materials yourself and actually learn how to use them. So let's keep watching. Krip, what's up?
So let's talk about them. Let's talk about the differences of playing just a normal PoE2 League or whatever ARPG versus solo self-found. And today I'll go over that, and also I'll give you guys a few tips if you do want to play solo self-found in the upcoming PoE2 League or whenever, really. So ultimately, it kind of came down...
Bro, can this actually be the tipping point for me for what the heck I'm gonna do at launch tomorrow?
Down to I'm really good at trading in video games. You guys might know from videos well over a decade ago how I was making crazy amounts of gold in World of Warcraft. It was not just a World of Warcraft thing. I've learned to realize how a lot of game systems and their marketplaces work. And yeah, it's pretty easy to exploit. Some of the richest players in Path of Exile, Path of Exile 1 especially, they don't even really play the game. They just trade items or they offer mirror services, and
that's kind of like what the economy aspect of the game is actually doing, right? Or like the trades, the trade system. Like it adds obviously like this totally different dimension to the game. Like where your main focus is not necessarily making your character better, it's just making insane currency. So what that potentially is going to do for you is that it's potentially going to take like the character you're playing from the very beginning of the league, like it's going to potentially take that in a totally different direction than you actually intended it to go, because you're able to get these, like, you're able to trade for these items that are like insanely good if you have the currency, right? But it makes it way more about the currency and the trading and being able to like trade for the best of the best, kind of, instead of like playing the game and figuring out how to actually craft these like super cool items. And it's also probably gonna inspire you to kind of like go in way more of the like the direction of what you are actually able to do with the RNG. It's gonna be more about that, and it's gonna be way more like deterministic and way more. It's gonna require way more of you instead of just like yeah, so what you do, you get this item, you trade for this item, then you get this item, then you get this upgrade, then you do this and this, and it's a totally different way to play the game than SSF. SSF is like a totally different experience, and I think the true way to actually learn most about the game, like learn as much as you can, like the true way to do that is actually by not trading, but forcing yourself to go into the game, actually experiencing the fact that you kind of like have to make the things you drop work. So there's going to be a lot of decisions that needs to be made. Like, okay, so am I in this situation gonna pick up a bunch of stuff from the ground that I'm not going to use, but I'm going to sell it for gold because I need a lot of gold, because I want to do like a lot of gambling, or I want to do like a lot of trying to get like very specific items. Like it's just a whole different dimension. But I mean, let's let Crip speak his mind here.
that really results in the highest accumulation of wealth.
Mhm.
It is an extreme case, but it does offer an understanding of how it works for most people. Because most people, yes, they still go and play the game, but they also spend a lot of time looking up what items are available, for sale online, what kind of items they can sell.
Yeah, instead of spending the time actually figuring out and using your currency to make your build work.
The prices, they're basically playing a part of the game that isn't so much gameplay as it is kind of like playing markets. And for someone like me, I've played so many games, and even IRL markets, I know a few things. It's at a point where it is a bit samey. That experience that you get from doing it in Path of Exile 2.
Bro, I couldn't agree more. Like that's what makes me, I think that's what makes a lot of like exclusive trade players, I think like that's what makes a lot of them kind of like think that a Path of Exile league, it's only a couple of weeks. Or it's if they feel like they are left behind on the economy if someone finds like this type of exploit, or if someone figures out how to generate a lot of currency, or if someone is actually RMTing, which is like against the freaking services of the game, you know. It can really take this wonderful experience of a game and just turn it into a freaking, yeah, like a market simulation. Like the reason why you are heading out to these maps, the reason why you are doing this content, it becomes more about what you can make out of it by selling it, instead of like you focusing on, yeah, I should get this and this and this, because with these three things I can actually do something really nice for my build. I'm not saying that you should only do like the one or the other. I'm just saying that I think like SSF is like really the game mode if you want to learn the game in its purest form.
Is hardly different doing it in any game that I've played in the past. And that is a big problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
It also is a big problem that, how should I say this? It's a bigger problem in a game like Path of Exile 2 because there's a huge focus on like a new season or a new league.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at a game like World of Warcraft, there's kind of like the old hoarders of gold, right? So because there's people that just have hordes of gold because they've been playing for a long time, any kind of activity that you do kind of like siphons off of them. So it doesn't have so much like cutthroat, you know, rat race type of situation as Path of Exile does, because anything you do just generates gold because there's just like gold lying around. Now, when there is a new seasonal reset in Path of Exile 2, it's certainly exciting. It's exciting to play, and trust me, it's plenty exciting to play, even if you know you don't engage with the markets. It just is exciting to play because there's lots of new stuff to do and experience.
Yeah.
But because there is this economy reset, the entire game, if you wish to play optimally, becomes one enormous rat race. Because this happens every single league. There becomes activities that you do that are crazy profitable, and having really strong characters really early.
Yeah, but that's like having the really strong characters really early. Like that really changes, I think, how a lot of people are actually playing the game. So they are not kind of like necessarily playing the builds or the play styles that they want to play. They are playing what they believe is going to be the strongest and the fastest to the end game, and to the like the potential of like making a lot of money or a lot of currency in the game that's going to allow them to get really strong really fast, and basically kind of like just feed off all the people that are basically slower than them. So it really becomes like the aspect of like the race. It becomes like a sprint, right? It's this huge sprint at the start of an economy reset. The huge sprint to kind of like accumulate as much currency as you possibly can, as quickly as you possibly can. And you're not necessarily like the way you are planning, like what is going to be my starter. Yeah, okay, so if I'm playing trade, I should probably be playing something that's gonna like cater to what a lot of other people are gonna be playing. So if a lot of people are gonna be like starting the Spirit Walker, and a lot of people are gonna be playing like the Twister build, like you could already kind of start to see some type of patterns, like what kind of weapon types are these people gonna be looking for? Like probably a bunch of people are gonna play like Twister builds that's going to require them to use a spear, right? Because Twister is like a spear specific skill, so a lot of people are going to be looking for the spears. So if you want to kind of like try to, or if you want to play something else than like what 90% of the rest of the players are going to be playing, if you're playing trade, you should still kind of have this, like, it's going to be a huge goal for you to kind of like meet the market in stuff that you know, like what are all these twister spear wielding twister huntresses, like what are they gonna be looking for to upgrade their builds? And if you kind of like meet the market that way, you are going to be able to have a lot more currency yourself, and you're kind of like going to be in a situation where you can kind of like feed that market, and in that way you're going to make a lot of currency, right? But if you just like, if you don't approach the game like that at all, but you approach the game like you want to figure out what type of builds is fun for you, what do you want to try out, what do you want to do, and you also really like that progression of like starting with nothing and actually having to earn everything yourself without the help from anyone, SSF is the way to go.
And getting into that, often before it's nerfed, results in incredible amount of wealth gain. So this results in a few things. The first is there is an incredible pressure on playing a very overpowered build. I see this as a downside because you often don't get to tailor what you actually want to play. Like, if you are a minion enjoyer, for example, and minions do not seem to be very good next season, and by the way, they don't.
Bro, he made this, he made this video before the video that we just saw from Gassy explaining that there has been a bug to minion damage, and so it seems like minions are actually gonna be pretty nice this league.
Well, you know, you are going to shoot yourself in the foot if you try to play a type of build that you like, because you're going to have to play the really OP stuff if you want to be, you know, kind of top tier, if you really want to play optimally. There is also a huge pressure on profitable farming. Now, this might be a bit of an alien concept to those that haven't played Solo Self-Found, but for now, let's just leave it with the example that we had in a previous season in Path of Exile with the new temple that they had, and kind of making those like crazy long snakes and just like basically pumping out divines. Basically, if you don't do that...
So the reason in SSF to do the snaking, bro, it would be a totally different reasoning to do that. So if you're pumping the snake in the temple for the divines, it's because divines is a very popular currency to trade with, right? A lot of the value of a certain item or certain items are like measured in divines. Especially like the kind of high tier items. So you would kind of think like, okay, how many divines is this worth? So and you just accidentally kind of pick up an item in Path of Exile 2, in trade, and it's gonna be like, the big question here is like, what is this item worth? It's not necessarily going to be like, is this an item that I'm going to be using? Like the main focus, or like that character, but like it's more like the main focus is going to be way more on like, how much currency can I make on this? So that I can specifically keep upgrading my build the way I want to.
You are going to be very poor. You're almost wasting your time even playing the game if you want to play optimally and kind of maintain a reasonable level of wealth in the game. And on one hand, that can be kind of cool because you're often engaging with, you know, new mechanics.
Bro, that's really interesting what he's saying right there. That you're like constantly going to be poor. Because your main goal is to get the currency so you can spend the currency, right?
Not always, though. But in my opinion, this is also a negative because it usually pushes you very heavily into doing kind of like a singular activity. Now, to be fair, the singular activities in Path of Exile, they can have pretty rich levels of depth, so it's not like it's boring, but it's not like you're experiencing the entirety of the game. You're really hyper focusing on one part of it.
Mm.
And there, of course, is an immense pressure on playtime. Like, if you're doing the first two things really, really well, but you're not playing, like, 10, 15-hour days at League Start, well, the other guys that are going to be ahead of you, and often far ahead of you. And that is a little bit of a problem because a huge amount of wealth is gained in the early days if you have a strong presence in the factors that I mentioned. And there's another thing that I think is also a pretty big negative for me, that several game systems just kind of fail if you trade. One of those is the skill gems, for example. The skill gems offer a pretty interesting and meaningful level of progression in the game, where you get a certain skill gem, and then, you kind of move up a few map tiers because you gain that much power, and then you get that type of skill gem. Go to like 18, then you go.
Yeah, like, I mean, it really like forces you to kind of like really understand what is actually making you able. You're not just like trading for like a huge upgrade that's gonna make you be able to go from like map tier 1 to like map tier 8 in one upgrade. I mean, basically, that's not SSF. That's not how SSF works.
The higher maps you find.
But you can do that in trade, right? If you get lucky, you get like a really good item that drops, and you're able to exchange that for a lot of currency and turn that into like a huge upgrade for your build. But you kind of skipped things, right? That's what it's saying, right? I totally agree. Because what you kind of do is that you kind of skip having to do that progression and having to do deeper thinking, basically. I think, or at least in my opinion, I think. So it's just like, it turns the game into like way more of like you're kind of measuring. So if you're playing, like, let's say you're playing for like, okay, so let's say 10 hours. Like, I don't care if you play 10 hours a day or if you play like 10 hours a week, right? I don't care. But if you're able in those 10 hours to make some meaningful progression, understanding why you are progressing, understanding why you should be doing the things that you're doing, like, it's actually also gonna, I think, like, doing that in SSF is gonna make you an even better trade player, because you're kind of like ahead of the game of kind of like understanding why are certain items so much more expensive than other items. You kind of understand it. So instead of dropping these like high-priced items and just selling them and not understanding why, SSF is actually gonna make you, it's actually gonna force you to understand why. You're gonna actually have to figure out, why is this omen so freaking expensive in trade? Why is this, like, you're really gonna understand what's really good about like the high-priced, a lot of like the high-priced items.
On level 19 skill gems. So you kind of like, follow the progression of the game. And trading many different ways. This is just one example. Really does kind of cheat that progression quite a bit.
Yep.
The idea that you often are pushed to do one mechanic is one that has been very true.
So, like, getting stuck in SSF, that's going to be a totally different experience, right? It's going to force you to have to think, really have to think, what can I do at this point to power up my build? While playing trade, you could just like potentially just like get a really, really good weapon, and then you're gonna do like a lot of damage, right? Your damage is gonna like skyrocket, right? But that doesn't necessarily tell you the backside of that. Like if you have a super good weapon, but your defenses are sucking and you don't understand why they are sucking, because you're not kind of progressing in the same way. You just like, it's just like based on the items that you are upgrading, or like the better items that you're getting, you know, is what gonna like decide how your build feels. But in SSF, you kind of like have to think about these things. You're really gonna have to think about it. What is it? What's the reason? Why am I doing less damage than I would like to? Why? Like, it's gonna force you to kind of like really understand how you build a powerful character.
In Path of Exile's history, it's not one that I can point so easily as I can to the temple in the previous league, but it usually is a case where people find a very efficient type of farming strategy, and that usually doesn't engage with very much of the game.
So here's the thing. Are you doing Abyss encounters? Are you farming Abyss? Because some of the omens and some of like the crafting items that you can get there are super, like you're able to sell them for a lot of currency, or are you farming them because they're actually great for specific crafting strategies? Right? Why are you doing what you do? Are you doing it to make currency, or are you doing it to actually understand how to improve your build?
And when they find that efficient strategy, sometimes it's a combination of using like certain tablets or certain maps or certain builds or just certain activities, certain mechanics, whatever it is. You know, you see a lot of videos out there, you know, I did this and got this much divine per hour or something like that. It usually...
But the thing is that it is kind of connected. Because if you understand in SSF how to like make a really powerful build, not like the one that's being hyped on YouTube, being hyped as like one of the strongest and newest and bestest of things, but if you learn how to make a really powerful build in SSF, is gonna like put you in an advantage. Because you yourself is gonna know, or you yourself is gonna know, right, how to build a strong build, how to make it work, and that's not necessarily gonna be like the build that is gonna be like the most popular in a certain league. And in that way, if you decide to play trade, you can actually take that build. It's not gonna be so expensive, because you're gonna be using a lot of items, and you're gonna go for a lot of things that a lot of other players, like mostly the rest of the players, are not gonna go for those things. So that means that you are probably going to be able to, if you play a trade, you're going to be able to pay less and get way more, because like you are not kind of run by the market. And that's like one of the secret, or not the secrets, but that's one of like the most powerful reasons why you should know how to play the game SSF and know how to make builds SSF, to then actually maybe even be even more efficient in trade, right?
Usually is like a hyper-focus method. So it doesn't necessarily have to be pushed within the game, but the game, how they naturally work, if you want to maximize your divines per hour.
So another very concrete example of this is like the materials or the items that you need to do certain encounters. So for example, in 0.5, we are gonna need the splinters to create the what is it called, the keystone, or basically we're gonna have to get 300 breach splinters to be able to like open one of these breach domains. So it's kind of like a key that we need to open the breach domains that's gonna allow us to like keep progressing into a specific mechanic. If you're able to do this at a point where your character is really not ready, really not strong enough, really not ready enough to go do this, in my opinion, that's gonna feel bad. But if you're farming this yourself in SSF, you finally get like 300 of them, it's gonna be this like great moment where you really think that, okay, I finally have 300 of these. I'm gonna combine them and make the freaking key. I'm gonna use the key to open the domain, and it's gonna be super exciting to kind of explore because you kind of worked for it, right? And I mean, you can say the same thing about trade. You've kind of like so you have been grinding for it, yes, but you haven't necessarily been like working for it in the same way, right? In SSF, you have to specifically go get these specific things that you can't trade for to do these other specific activities that you want to do because of what you're going to learn in SSF, why you want to do them for your character.
You are once again kind of in that trap of playing a fairly narrow version of the game. And if you do all of those things well, you actually encounter another thing that I would personally say is a downside, where very high rarity items actually become trivialized and deterministic if you are a highly efficient player. But also, if you are not a highly efficient player, these things can be totally out of reach. One example in PoE 1, there's a notable belt called
so basically like what that's gonna do is like it's really gonna force you to understand how to make a really, really effective build. Like so there are these walls that you're gonna be hitting that's gonna force you to kind of like change how you think about the build, because if you want to explore if you want to explore what comes next, or if you want to explore what happens in this encounter, you kind of like have to make your build strong enough to be able to do the previous content before you can do like the next content. I think this is super important. Like just in general, like I don't want to get like super like philosophic about this, but I don't think that it's going to be good for you in any way to be able to like jump up more steps than you are actually able to kind of like understand how you are able to jump up those steps. So I don't think like the progression of things, like you being able to jump from like step 1 to like step 7 without experiencing like 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I don't think that's like, I think that's more of a negative than a positive. So I really agree with Crip here.
Mage Blood, which is why some people got pretty excited about the Mage Blood teaser that we got for this season.
Yeah, so people are getting excited for these items, but they don't necessarily get so like they're gonna get excited. A lot of like people that want to play trade, they're gonna be excited to try to get the amount of currency that is actually needed to buy that item. But an SSF player is gonna chase that item in a totally different way. It's going to be a total different approach. And it's not going to be like for the profit of things. It's going to be for like the effects that that item is actually gonna be able to do for your build?
It is a incredibly powerful item that power gamers pretty much just get a few days into each league, because if you follow the steps to success, that's just what you get. You get the powerful
So farm what you should be farming to make the most currency so that you can just buy it, basically.
stuff. Someone's going to find a mage blood in the law of numbers, and if you are gaming the economy like crazy and you can afford the early versions of these items, you're just going to have them.
Yeah.
But if you don't play under those kind of like restrictions, you might literally never get one. I have seen lots of Reddit posts about players who try to save up their divines for a mage blood, and what happens is the price actually outpaces their ability to generate that amount of currency, which leads to them literally never getting one because they don't play efficiently enough, and they just don't play enough.
Yeah. So basically so if you're doing SSF, like that situation is gonna like force you to think differently. It's gonna force you to think differently, and it's gonna force you to use the items that you're actually getting in the most efficient way. Which means you're gonna get like a whole lot of more thinking and strategy, and actually having to kind of like really consider what you're dropping. Up against like what you actually are able to play. So, so basically, instead of like playing the market, you're actually kind of like playing the RNG in a way, kind of, You have to constantly adapt to whatever is dropping on the ground, instead of like constantly adapting to whatever makes you the most currency.
So that is also a very crazy divide. It's a feast or famine, and honestly, I think there's quite few people in the middle of that kind of playing both sides. Ultimately, the biggest thing for me is if you are like a veteran of the game playing in a trade environment, especially in an efficient trade environment, which we now have in Path of Exile 2, it really does kind of feel like cheating, where you just bypass rarity, you bypass RNG, you just kind of bypass tiers, bypass progression. You really just, you're playing with Game Shark, basically, okay? So, the opposite side.
So I think this is really, really interesting and a really, really cool like take from Crip here. Like, I totally agree with what he's saying, and it's totally like trading is like totally kind of removing that entire excitement that I have about with the game. Actually figuring out, okay, I'm at this point right now with my character. What type of items are there actually in the game? Like, what can I potentially do now to like really upgrade whatever I'm playing, So that's why we need a lot of these systems in the game that is going to allow us to customize, allow us to like really build in the directions that we want to build in, and figure out how to solve these horrible potential situations that we're going to find ourselves in, where we just feel like totally hard stuck, and we feel like the only way to kind of get out of this rut that we are in with our character is going to be to bypass a lot of potential learning and obviously potential grinding, to actually figure out, make mistakes, figure out, but you're not gonna have this feeling of like, okay, so now I'm making this mistake by actually understanding how a divine orb, for example, actually works. Like the divine orb, the effects that it has on your modifiers, that you're actually able to change the numeric values of your modifiers, like actually understanding why these currencies are so popularly used in trade is because they can do these specific things for you. Like, you're never gonna learn those things. You're never gonna learn those things, I think, if you play SSF. If you don't play SSF, I mean, if you only play trade. Because you're not gonna understand why these certain items are so valuable. You're not gonna understand like why, but when you understand why, you also start to understand why they are so expensive. Because they can do this, they can do that, they can modify your gear in this way, they can do this for your progression, they can really, like, you know, really make you learn a bunch of stuff.
Flip side, what about solo self-found? What's so great about it? So I think one of the best comparisons that I can give to at least a good number of the people watching is playing solo self-found is a lot like playing the arena version of Hearthstone. You know, your decks are going to be much weaker, but they're going to be quite interesting, and you're going to have to figure out how you're actually going to win
Yep.
with what you have.
Yes.
And in many different ways, you're going to have to think on your feet, and in many different situations, not just hyper-focused learning like one deck as you might in Constructed. All right, enough of that. So what does that mean for actual Path of Exile or ARPGs? So the main incentive in solo self-found is to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it, okay? If you want your character to be stronger, what you have to do is play the game. You have to go and do content and kill monsters, okay? You have to play the game in order to progress. You have to play the game in order to have your character gain power. You have to play the game to get, you know, the highest rarity drops. You cannot hyper-focus on a singular mechanic, because if you do, you're just not going to obtain the multitude of items that come from the other mechanics. For example, if you have a crazy profitable delirium strategy, well, yes, that's...
Yeah, so I was doing this series, like, I think, I don't know if I did a lot of them in 0.4, but I did a lot of them in, or not a lot, but I did start a series on my channel, which is called Dead Men Loot No Maps. It's the hardcore SSF approach to the game. It's really painful, and it really kind of like forces, not painful, but like it really forces you to think about every single thing that's dropping. Like, I just rewatched one of my one of my earlier recordings or earlier streams of that game mode in an earlier league. And it really made me think about, like, how much these items that are actually dropping on the ground, how much they can potentially actually mean for you. Like, they can be the difference between life and death of your character in hardcore SSF. So that's the game mode that the freaking most hardcore, freaking diehard fans of this game is playing. It's the hardcore SSF. Because it forces you to constantly think. Like, you can't think that the goal is to get as fast as possible through all of the content. You have to think, how the heck am I gonna get through all of the content without dying, basically? Which is kind of like one of the reasons why I think hardcore SSF is a bit too hardcore for me right now. But I would love hardcore SSF to kind of like be one of the most fun things I can do in Path of Exile 2 in the future. Because it really puts the stakes up there. Like, there is really no excuse. Like, what you are freaking showing, the skills that you are showing, when like really being able to make like a super high level, highly efficient build in hardcore solo self-found, that's like the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate goal, I think. Not claiming to be anywhere close to being that good at the game, but that's like really where you test your knowledge of the game.
Great and all, but how are you going to get things from Breach? You're just not, right? If you want things from Breach, what you're going to have to do is Breach. You have to play the game. And that means that you really experience the fullness of the game. The incentives are actually set up correctly for you to enjoy the game, because you will have to engage with all aspects of it.
Because what the different things are gonna, like the different mechanics are gonna give you, that's what you need. So you're gonna learn why you actually do what you do. And don't let like someone else tell you what to do, because like this is the most efficient and the most profitable way to do it. You actually have to freaking figure out how to do it.
That's really the key. And that is one that has really kind of changed my view about the game mode. You know, I was a little bit skeptical when I saw players doing self-imposed SSF many years ago in Path of Exile 1, but this is kind of like the moment that clicked for me. So let's kind of go over some of the big downsides from playing trade and see how they work out in solo self-found. So is there a lot of pressure on playing a really OP build when there's a new season? There is still some pressure. That is actually true. You can't really get away from that, because
yeah, I mean, if you want to play that, if you want to play the game in that way, like if you want to play the trade game, that's basically what you need to do. If you look at the game in a way that is like, okay, how can I kind of like play this game mode and be the most efficient? Like the way you're going to be approaching it is like understanding, okay, why, or like what is the most OP thing gonna do? And if you potentially pick the wrong one or something that you don't enjoy, like you're gonna invest a lot of time in something that you don't necessarily enjoy, because like the enjoyment of what you're getting, or the enjoyment of the actual enjoyment is not like tied to playing the game. It's more like tied to how efficient are you to do what someone else tells you to do to be the most efficient. Like, not to get too philosophical, but like, I don't necessarily think that's one of the greater aspects of us human beings. Like, you're gonna be, like, your success is gonna be measured by like how able you are to do what you're told.
your first character is kind of the one that opens up the ability to get good items, right? And you want to kind of access the good items still fairly quickly, right? So you typically...
Yeah, so just letting a little bit of my personality, my true personality, leak through here, my guys. My dudes.
Even if you're playing SSF, you don't want to play like a total jank build. You still want to have some kind of plan. It might be a good idea to still follow like a build guide, but there are a few things to consider still. Now, in terms of profitable farming, there's almost no pressure for that. And I think the previous season, with the temple being so crazy, like in Trade League, people were doing 10,000 divine per hour or something like that. Just like, or per day. I don't even know. It doesn't matter, right? Like infinity currency, basically. I had that in solo self-found.
It's like a cheat, right? It's like that infinite freaking, what is it called? Like that infinite, like some infinite like ammo and some type of like like a shooter game, or like some infinite gold in like a game where that can like really change or like make you progress a lot faster. Like, so it's really not about the game itself. It's like about like how much can you break things, or like how broken can you make your build so that like you kind of feel like the game is not playing you, but you are playing the game in some type of like twisted way. I don't know.
Made a little snake temple of my own. Did I just play that? No, because again, as good as the temple was, well, I needed some catalysts, and I needed some breach rings. I needed some items from ritual.
Yeah.
So I still had to engage with the rest of the game. In a case where one mechanic was so unbelievably broken and rewarding compared to all others, I still had to engage with the entirety of the game. So I think that is pretty awesome. Another one is there is minimal pressure on playtime. Like, yeah, if you play less, you're going to have a less powerful character, you're going to find less stuff, but you're not going to encounter that situation where if you play less, you're literally never going to be able to obtain a mage blood without finding one. Actually, that part is kind of going to hold true in solo self-found as well, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. Like, maybe 0.5 is the league where you don't find the mage blood, or you don't get a headhunter, or you don't get these things, and that's gonna force you to think differently. It's gonna force you to think new, my dudes. It's gonna force you to innovate.
In solo self-found, the power levels are lower, but that is actually a good thing in some ways, at least. One downside I want to bring up is solo self-found does require more stash tabs. So if you have not purchased the additional stash tabs in Path of Exile 2, you might be a little bit hard-pressed to play solo self-found because you definitely need some space. You still want some stash tabs if you're playing Trade League, arguably more if you're like a crazy hyper trader, but you know, it is what it is. Solo self-found also is what it implies in the the SSF, solo self-found. You do not play with other people. This is a pretty big factor for some people. Some people really like to play with other people, and if you really like to play with other people in Path of Exile, you should do that. That's what you should do.
Yeah, okay. True, bro. True, 100% true. If you are a person that don't put that as like the highest priority, like playing with other people, SSF is the way to go.
But for me, I just kind of like to play by myself these days. You know, I've kind of grown into that. The other thing that I really like that I want to kind of throw in there is there's no real limit to endgame, and that kind of ties into the rare drops. Like, rare drops in solo self-found are really exciting. Like last league, I picked up a Mjolnir, and is Mjolnir a good item? No. But for like solo self-found, it's kind of like...
Bro, it might be now when you can actually like rune forge it, and if at some point we're actually going to be able to like... So I feel like all the things that I'm actually missing from the game, like that I really miss, that I really wish that was actually in the game, is that it is like those things that's going to make me even more excited to play SSF.
Maybe good enough, and it really got me to thinking in like what I could actually do with it, because it's such a rare item. It's an opportunity to play, a build I perhaps have not played before. So that's really awesome.
Word.
And yes, you won't get like
because that's the way you're going to be thinking when you're playing SSF, right? You're going to be thinking like, oh my god, I got this unique item. Damn, this kind of like inspired me to kind of like try and do something totally different on like a totally different build, and you're actually gonna figure out if that works or not. I mean, it's gonna be a chance that you take, but like that feeling of like making the items or like the unique items and like the specific drops great again, it's an appealing feeling.
The mage blood or anything like that, but ultimately you are going to have a lower power character, but there is a real beauty to that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to carry you through content. No one is going to like sell you the item that you need to.
Yeah, so basically, like, you can't. That's the thing with SSF. Like, you can't get people to carry you through the ascendancy trials. Like, if you have the currency, your goal is not going to be to get 50 divines to pay someone to kind of like just get you through the freaking, I don't know, third ascendancy trial or whatever. You have to make it work. You have to figure it out. You have to make it work. And like, what's not to like about that, right? There is enough things in life, I think, that is like comparing you to other people, like the grades you get in school, like that's gonna tell you, like, that's a comparison with other people. Like, okay, so what is your grades? Like, so is a lower grade in school actually making you a worse person than a person with higher grades? No. The person with higher grades is basically like the person that's like, you know, better than you of just like following instructions.
Make your character 10 times more powerful. Having to kind of grind it out on your own at the end of the day just feels like a lot more rewarding.
Yep.
And because of that, and because the power levels are fairly lower, there's really no cap to end game. Many times I've played a trade version of an ARPG or even Path of Exile 1. I've actually never played Path of Exile 2 trading, but of course, I watch streams. I know what's happening in the game. You sometimes experience that point where your character really cannot be meaningfully stronger.
Yeah, so what's kind of like interesting about playing SSF and being aware of the stuff that is happening in trade is that you're kind of like, you're getting aware of like, okay, certain items are really expensive, but it's like the moment you realize why these items are so expensive in trade, you kind of like get even more excited if you actually get that item, if you actually drop that item or you get that item in SSF, because you understand that, okay, this is something that's potentially gonna do something great for me.
But you kind of want to keep playing it. You don't really want to reroll, but then you play it and it just kind of feels pointless because it's already the strongest version that the character could be. When you play in a trade environment, this is a point that you reach sometimes fairly quickly if you are an efficient player.
Yep.
And if you're someone that likes to roll new characters all the time, this might not be a problem whatsoever. But for me, I kind of get attached to some of the characters and builds that I play. And in solo self-found, the limit to like peaking in power and peaking in gear and peaking in everything, it's just so distant. And because I have to earn it to get there, the progression always feels good, and it takes me a long time. Like, there's actually been many leagues where I just play one character. Several characters and some others and lots in others, but, I can play a single character league and feel satisfied and actually play for like a month at a time, for example. So it is very big difference in playstyle. And hopefully I've offered you guys a little bit of understanding. Now, for those of you that are interested in...
Bro, shout out to you, Crip, for doing this. Like, yeah. It's so cool. Like, it means a lot to me, and hopefully it's gonna mean a lot to other people as well. Like, the philosophy is sharing here, I mean, it's deeper than just like, are you gonna do trade or are you gonna do SSF? It's on a deeper level. It's just generally how you approach things, I feel.
In Solo Self-Found, I do have a few tips, especially if you have not tried it before, I would say. So again, you definitely want to start on a strong build, at least a pretty strong build, but I think it's also important to start on a class that has the potential to play lots of different kinds of builds. And
so that's the thing. Like, that's always what I kind of like to think, like, because I really like making my own stuff, making my own builds. And usually what I try to do is make these like all-rounders, you know, these builds that are able to do, like the goal is that they're going to be able to do every type of content. So that means they're not going to necessarily be like super efficient at one thing, but they're going to be able to handle anything you throw at them. Like, that's the type of builds I like making.
And this is because you might get a Mjolnir, basically. You might get a really cool rare drop, and you might want to actually use it. You might not want to make an entirely new character, you know? The Path of Exile 2 campaign, some people love it, some people do not love it, okay? And the thought of going through it again for an alt is not a pleasing thought for some people.
Yep.
So, believe it or not.
Believe it or not, yeah. So if you are like an SSF enjoyer, you are also basically like a campaign enjoyer. You are an enjoyer of having to start at step 1 and incrementally improve and understand how you're gonna get to the next step, and the next step, and the next step, and the next step, so on and so forth.
Having a character that can pivot to a wide variety of builds is pretty important, and I just kind of want to point that out, that monks, they generally have limited options. They're pretty good with like attacks and like triggered skills, but it really falls off pretty hard after that. There are some options, and yeah, some options maybe with like minions, but like, yeah, I don't know. Sork is also quite limited, a little bit less so now that we got the Chrono buff. I quite like playing Chrono, but still fairly limited, because if you don't want to play something that involves like Energy Shield, you kind of have to go really far, and that becomes a bit of a problem. I also think...
But I think they are working on this. So like, yeah, I'm just gonna shamelessly plug my my 2 video uploads that hopefully like is gonna be out very soon on my YouTube channel. It's the 2 videos about the additions to the passive tree and also the changes to the passive tree. And I think that the tree is basically, it's only gonna keep growing, I think. It's gonna keep growing. So with additions that's gonna be like added to the tree and stuff, like it's gonna be, hopefully it's gonna be way better for if you're starting something and you want to like, so like it's gonna be way better in the future, hopefully. That if you're starting some type of build, you can like pivot. You know, you can pivot into something else. Because of like how the tree is set up. So you can basically kind of like, hopefully at some point, you're not gonna feel like you are kind of like forced to do a very specific thing, but you're gonna feel like you're gonna be able to do a lot of different things. If I just go to the left here instead of going to the right here, if I just go down here instead of going up here, I'm still gonna be able to kind of like have what I need to shape the character into what I want it to be, based basically on the run, right?
That the mercenary class is fairly limited. Again, maybe a little bit less so because it seems like they're buffing the gemling. So maybe not too bad, but there's certainly some big winners out there. Like Witch is just incredible. Between Lich, Abyssal Lich, and Blood Mage, I don't even know anymore. But Infernalist, you can pretty much play any build in the game. You know, that's just like the full range of it. If you want to play Warrior, Titan can pretty much play any build in the game because of the efficiency in the 50% node being so crazy. So there's definitely some big winners in that, and I certainly do factor that in when I am playing in a new league. I typically want to play something that is very flexible. I guess another one that is also very flexible is Druids, because the Oracle has just like incredible availability to a variety of nodes and extreme efficiency with the, I think it's Unseen Path, I think.
Yeah, so really this is something you want to think about when you're choosing your ascendancy as well, right? It's really something you want to be thinking about, like, how flexible am I gonna be at a later point? Because that's kind of like what I've done with like the main build that I've been playing for at least like the last couple of leagues, which is the Invoker. Like the Invoker is, you're kind of like, if you're not focusing on like the really cool things about the Invoker Ascendancy, if you're not leaning into that, like so Invoker is like a really cool build if you want to do like elemental stuff, I think. So there's totally like there's a lot of ways, you know, to play the Invoker. You just gotta understand like the core principles of the different ascendancies and kind of like see the ascendancy and think like, okay, this is something that I want to focus on. So I think this is really cool with this ascendancy, and try to kind of like erase how you are thinking very specifically about a certain class. So you could think like this, like the monk incentivizes you to do like all the quarterstaff things. But what you could actually do is that you could do a totally different weapon type that focuses on totally different things, and the ascendancy you pick is because you want those very like ascendancy specific noticeables, right? So that's kind of like how I like to think about the game in general. It's like I want to kind of like acquire as much knowledge about the like the different ascendancies, so that I get these kind of ideas that, okay, so what I want to try next is like something totally different than what's like the obvious path to go, but like a totally different direction. Right? So there are gonna be like these quote incentivized unquote ways to do a specific class, but there is a ton of options if you really start like mixing and matching everything, and especially if you are doing these changes and doing these things based on playing SSF and not being able to kind of like really laser out a specific direction, but actually having to make your drops and the items that you get count.
So that one is really good. Another one that I want to kind of point out is in Trade League, especially if you play with other people, you often can just focus entirely on damage. In Solo Self-Found, you cannot do that. You really want to play a character that is well-rounded, that has good damage.
Bro, that's how I like to play. A well-rounded beast.
good clear, and good survivability. And honestly, I would even aim for great survivability because you really don't want to lose out on content because you're
So what you really need to kind of like figure out with your builds in general, it's like, how can you get those specific like multipliers, those specific things on the tree that's like really gonna matter, so that you can basically focus your tree much more around like survivability, especially at the later point in the game.
character dies, because you can't cheat those things. You know, if your character dies when you're running an extremely high value map, you can't just trade for another one. You'll have to find another one, and that might take a really long time.
Yeah.
So survival.
Yeah, so what that's really gonna teach you is the importance of defense.
Ability on your character is absolutely something you need to factor in, and that can in some ways look like a limitation on some builds, but I would say that all builds can skew into survivability, especially now that we have armor and evasion.
Yeah, so what's really gonna matter here is like the really important nodes that you're getting on the tree. It's gonna rely a lot about rely a lot upon your supports. It's gonna rely a lot upon your skills, what you're picking and choosing, and how all these things are working together, allowing you to kind of like go for like a specific thing when it comes to like your damage, for example, so that it frees up more room, like it frees up more space for you to build more defensive, right? So you're kind of like figuring out these strategies of how to like multiply and do as much damage as you possibly can, but at the same time, that doesn't mean like getting every single damage node on the tree. It's about realizing that you need a strong weapon, you need modifiers that is modifying your damage, you need to pick the right supports, you need to have the right type of gear, right? For you being able to do these things. So that you can free up more space to basically kind of like be even more defensive.
Buffed on the skill tree and on the items. There are options available. It's just that a lot of people who play in trade leagues literally just ignore them. So there is that.
Yep.
In terms of kind of your goals when you're starting out playing solo self-found, the main thing that I would aim for is to get to high tier waystones, like high tier maps, and it's okay to kind of burn through all the currency and stuff that you get in order to get to like tier 15. If you're not at tier 15, it's okay to burn pretty much any currency that you find along the way for character power and progression speed, because you really need to kind of climb the character power to get there. But once you get to the highest tier waystones, the highest tier maps, you are able to get very good base items, and at that point you are able to get like the good gear, basically. So getting there is really important. Once you get there, I actually like to be a bit more conservative, especially with the higher rarity currencies and items that I get. Like I might be a bit more choosy with how I use like especially perfect transmutes and things like that, even on the lower end of currencies, just because at that point you are starting to find items of very high potential worth, and you kind of want to get...
Yeah, but potential worth, not in a trade situation, but like potential worth for your actual character and your progression.
A few freebies, especially at the start. And it's best to not dump too much of the high value currency immediately, again, is my experience. Another one that I like is trying to not spend gold until hitting certain breakpoints with gambling. So the reason why gambling is very powerful, especially in solo self-found, is because you are able to get a lot of items that are otherwise just extreme rarity drops. So like jewelry, for example, really doesn't drop very often in Path of Exile 2. It's kind of like Ruthless in Path of Exile 1. And most characters are going to want an amulet with +3 to skills. This is an item level 75 affix, which you can gamble regularly, I believe, if you're over level 90. I think you want level 91 just to be safe. You can just check the item level because maybe this is something that changes in the future as well. But the idea being that if you're playing solo self-found, you can't just buy a +3 amulet from someone else. You have to get one. How do you get one? Well,
Yeah, or craft one.
you have to find efficient ways to get very high rarity affixes on a rare base. Well, gambling gets you a lot of those bases, and that's kind of the beauty of solo self-found. It's on you to kind of figure out these puzzles and to figure out how you can actually obtain, the high power, the high influence items to make your characters into, that true peak performance. Very cool part about the game that really gets trivialized in many ways in Trade League, at least in my opinion. Another thing that I really like to do when I play solo self-found, now this is one for the people with lots of stash tabs probably, but there is the 3-to-1 recipe that you can use, and it is often used
Yeah, the reforging.
by players for like upping waystones and that kind of stuff, but I really like to use it on items that have rare bases. So for example, jewelry. All those amulets that I gamble, I don't just like throw them in the garbage. I pretty much just try to keep them and 3-to-1 them. Now the 3-to-1 recipe in Path of Exile utilizes the lowest item level of your items as the new item. So you need to be careful with that. Like if you're trying to get a +3 amulet, you typically want to make them all rare because 3 rare ones will give you a rare amulet, 3 blues will give you a blue and as such. Now the idea is that if you're going to want to try to get from the 3-to-1 recipe potentially a +3 amulet, you only want to use amulets that are at least item level 75. But I do this recipe especially for jewelry, for rings, for belts. It's extremely good for jewels because you can't even gamble jewels. You literally have to find them. Well, if you want to find like 40% more jewels, you use the 3-to-1 recipe, and jewels don't even have an item level, so you can start hoarding jewels right from the start of the game. And this is going to be especially powerful in the upcoming season where...
Yeah, so a bunch of these items, like, even though I've been playing trade, like, I have actually been, like, hoarding certain items. Just because I feel like that's, like, almost like part of how I approach it. But I've just ended up like, so I have a bunch of jewels now just kind of like sitting in my shop tab in trade. Or I had it sitting in my shop tab, playing Trade League, and just like that entire like having to constantly like reprice and price check and this and that. Like, yes, it's fun, but it's not necessarily fun having to do that because you kind of feel forced to try to make some currency out of it instead of like trying to actually make it something usable.
We get new base types from like the breach mechanic, the tree mechanic, let's say. There's going to be like crazy amulets and that kind of stuff. And there's going to be things like, for example, there's going to be the amulets that have 2 instilled nodes on them. And if you get 3 of those, it's kind of like getting a free one, right? So there's some really powerful...
Yeah, if you get 3 of those, that you don't like either of them is something that's like very usable. 3-to-1 them. See if you can get something that you really need.
Things that you can get through that system, because again, in solo self-found, you got to work for every single piece and you got to try to get the most out of it every time.
Yeah,
and that is the beauty at the end of the day. Hopefully you picked up a few pointers. and you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next.
Thank you, Crip. Bro, thank you, Crip. You might actually just have convinced me to start SSF. You might actually have just convinced me. So, what we have done, my dudes, is that we have actually knocked down the time a little bit by a couple of hours until release with this session. I'm gonna call it here, my dudes, because I feel like the stalling is over. The decisions needs to be made in 24 hours, and I'm gonna take these hours, or 23 and a half hours, I'm gonna take them, I'm gonna consider them, I'm gonna get some sleep, I'm gonna go out tomorrow, do some business, I'm gonna be hopefully prepared for launch, knowing exactly what to press when the league launches tomorrow. If that's gonna be a freaking trade character, a specific ascendancy of some kind, if it's gonna be an SSF character with a specific ascendancy in mind, we will have to see. But that's gonna be it for now, my dudes. That's gonna be it for this session. Now, we're just gonna let these 33 and a half hours be whatever they are gonna be. And tomorrow, it's gonna be 0.5. I hope to see you at launch. I hope that these videos and these sessions are bringing you a lot of good stuff, a lot of motivation, inspiration, and if you like what you see, hit me up with a like. If you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing, and I will see you guys at launch. I'm Mounts and Fairy Tales. You are you, and thank you for watching.